Evening. This is John Warren, publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, coming to you for another week in the midst of a pandemic and a lot of grief and suffering, but believing that if we stick together, we can weather it and we can come through this. Our prayers, first of all, to every family out there that's impacted. We have an unprecedented number of fatalities in this country right now. We have surpassed the number of people who died in almost 2 decades of the Vietnam War, in excess of 58,000. I think by now it's 60,000 deaths, 3 million worldwide, one third of that here in the United States. And numbers still going up. Yesterday in New York, there were 334 deaths, and the deaths are continuing to come in. We're continuing to suffer a lack of national direction and leadership with a president who can't seem to get to the pandemic for his inability to go beyond himself. We should be in better shape than any other country in the world, and yet our numbers are worse than the top five largest companies in the world in terms of death and infections. Uh, Over 1 million people infected. Some places still trying to decide whether or not you wear a face covering. People still trying to reopen businesses where they shouldn't be. Some young people deciding that they're not at risk, so they don't have to wear gloves or protective face masks. A complete disregard for all the information that says that you could be atypical, not show any signs yourself, and yet be responsible for infecting and possibly killing someone else. We're still in a situation with African Americans per 1,000 having some of the highest numbers, even though in some areas where our population is small, numbers might be small in terms of death or infections, but in proportion, those numbers are large. So this is still a very serious time. A lot of people are really getting upset from being housebound, cabin fever, um, locked away too long. Some are getting out to take walks. A walk is good as long as you space it, the social distancing. You need to look at the time that you do it. For instance, I walk very early in the morning when few, if any, people are out. The walk so that if I come across an individual, I cross the street. Um, the exercise we still need, and so we're coming at a very important time. The Voice and Viewpoint is still publishing print copy as well as online distribution. Tomorrow morning, this week's print edition will hit the streets, and the digital edition will hit the airwaves later in the day. And we're still carrying information on the virus. We're still carrying snapshots of what's happening in our communities. We're still covering state, local, and national implications of this virus in terms of what we're dealing with. And we want to thank those of you who are continuing to support the paper. We are distributing, though our churches are closed, we're distributing copies of our paper to all the various food sites, giving away in excess of 1,000 papers a week so that families can have some of the direct information. We're not only doing the food sites in terms of drive-throughs and walk-ups, but we've also been doing the school lunch feeding sites where each day designated schools are having parents come and pick up lunches for the day and a snack for the following morning for their children. And this is all part of what was started many years ago under the National School Lunch Act. I'm very glad that at the time of its inception, I was on Capitol Hill and helped draft it, so I have a real close hand understanding of what it's supposed to be doing. I want to send out kudos to not only the faculty people, the school employees that are involved, but to the many volunteers that I have encountered giving their time each day to help get food, lunches to our children. And so this is a special time, and we're very thankful that there's so many wonderful people in our community who are reaching out. My heart is touched and encouraged every day as I see our young people on the front line, moving tons of food, preparing the bags and boxes, second crew coming to clean up, making house deliveries, and getting stuff out. No one complaining, everybody working as a team, everyone with a strong sense of how important this function and this mission is. Uh, so I just want to throw these things out as we get started because it's on my heart from being there every day, seeing it. And I want to thank Dr. Thompson for what he's continuing to do with GOD Radio. We're just trying to get some of our other partners to realize the importance of utilizing this station to reach and to serve our community. It's critical that people have information. And if we're worried about small business, this is a small business as well. And we want to see that we make this a priority. So, again, this evening, if you wish to join us, you may do it by phone at 858 251 6111. That's 858 251 6111. Or you may come on the internet and send in a question or comment at GOD Radio 1, that's numero 1.com. And so, Dr. Thompson, thank you again. I didn't mean to be a little long-winded there, but I thought that it's a solemn time, and we wanted to let people know that our hearts and our prayers are with them.
Amen, amen. Dr. Warren, truly, truly, it is a time of reflection. I know that with young people, they will be able to come back, many years from now and have conversations with their children and their friends, and they'll say, "Do you remember 2020? 2020, how things changed and schools are closed, and this is really a great time of reflection." But
Yes.
I want to hop on a couple of things, Dr. Warren, and I know some people might get upset with this conversation, and it's okay. You all can call in again, 858-251-6111. I agree that we all need to work and we all do need to get back, and we would like to see us get back to a normal state of life. But in my heart of hearts, I just feel that um, there's not a lot of wisdom being given out when it comes to how we're reopening states. Now, Georgia, which was a state, a slavery state, was one of the first ones that hopped up and said, "We reopening." And
Mm-hmm.
everybody is saying, "Free at last, free at last. We don't have to stay in the house. We can go get all our hair done and all the things and everything else that nature." And they've already seen a spike in the coronavirus in Georgia. When are we going to open our eyes up and realize that some things are done to even out the population, level out the population? They cleared out, and I'm just being honest, look at how many people passed away in New York. And then when you look at the immigrant population and the population of color, those people that didn't want so many of them in New York, they gone now. And so I'm like saying, when do we start saying, look, I'm not going to be so quick to hop out there. I'm going to put on my mask. I'm going to put on my gloves, and I'm still going to walk with precaution versus we free at last. We're going to go hang out at the beach. We're going to go hang out at the park. We're going to paff, puff, all this other stuff. When are we going to really learn and do our own research?
Well, my first thought is that our society is a victim of its sociological culture. And I'm going to put this nicely. There are people in this society who feel that they are privileged and that they always have been privileged. There are people who feel that the rules never apply to them.
Mike
They,
Pence.
they apply to everyone else. And so these people are people who will not take this seriously. There are young people who have been raised from infancy with the same idea that they are privileged over other people and that the rules don't apply to them as well. And so we see that happening. I want to speak to our people of color because I'm very concerned since we have borne the burden of so much that we not fall into this trap. I notice more and more people are using an expression that I started sharing some time ago that came from the former late governor of, mayor of Atlanta. And he used to say that when white America catches a cold, black America catches pneumonia. And so we already know from all the studies that we have more stress, more difficulty, all kinds of things working against us. And that causes our body system to react differently to attacks. Plus, we have the kind of jobs that give us exposure from a fireman, police, or postal worker, um, all of these things that put us out there on the front line. And so our chances are up. The small jobs that we work, all of these things bring exposure. And so Georgia, I believe what we're going to see more of in Georgia is that while some people are going to come out, those who have privilege, I believe that African Americans in particular are not going to respond. That we have enough sense to understand that we are at risk. First of all, we have been used to being deprived and being without. And as I pointed out in the editorial this week, America is experiencing something that we've lived with for almost 200 years. And what America is experiencing is a situation that it knows it can make better, it has the means to do better, and yet those in charge refuse to do. This has been the story of the black people in this country. Everybody knew we didn't have equality, we didn't have fairness, we had segregation, and all the things we had and all the civil rights bills we passed, we still always were victims of people finding ways to get around the concept of full equality based on the color of our skin. And so race is a factor because race affects economics. Race affects what kind of job you have. The Kerner Commission said 50 years ago that in America, where one's worth is determined by what they do, to do nothing is to be nothing. And yet we've had the highest numbers in terms of unemployment. Mm-hmm. And so you're right when you look at this. I believe that following this, that within the next 3 weeks, we're going to see a spike in not only cases, but deaths in Georgia. As I recall today, the death rate is still going up.
Yeah, and they have seen a spike.
Yeah, it is spiking. And if we listen to Governor Cuomo of New York, he's done such a phenomenal job of statistically and scientifically breaking it down and why we should do. Some people have sense, even though in some places businesses have been allowed to open, people are not coming out. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going back to a theater anytime soon to sit. And if you look at Netflix, they picked up 15 million members so far this year.
And if you go on Facebook and these other spots, all the movies that are out have been bootleg already. And I'm not telling people to go bootleg it, but I would rather for you to be at home and watch something on your TV or something like that in the safety of your home than going to a movie theater and coughing and laughing and see, it's not always the cough. It could be the laughter. It could be the outburst that causes someone to get infected. And like I said, movie popcorn is delicious, but it's not worth my life. You know what I'm saying?
No.
I understand about your manicure, your pedicure, and your hairdo, but it's not worth your life because, see, there are a lot of people that are going to become good-looking corpse.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna get free haircuts and hairdos. And as one minister said, they're gonna get free makeup care.
Yeah.
On the end, but it won't matter. And this is the time that people have a chance to make choices. Choices. We can choose whether we live or die. We can choose to be responsible for others, and we can choose to understand that perhaps, as I feel very strongly, this is the time that God is giving the world a pause and to give some thought. You know, the words "be still and know that I am God." I believe this is a chance for everybody to stop and think. He's closed down the sports, the bars, the restaurants, the games, and everything that you could use as a distraction has been closed. And so here we are now. And the question is, will we take advantage of this, and will we pause and think about our mortality and how fortunate we are, those of us who are here? Will we find ways? I think it's appalling that the Congress refuses to give the kind of support to the healthcare workers, teachers, firemen, and policemen, and they still, that same Republican mentality, we're going to take care of big business at the expense of everybody else. Hopefully, this is going to be a learning time for America, and that you're going to realize that you got to stop putting people in office based on how much money they have and how they look and what they say, and start getting real serious and get back to the idea of who's going to help us.
Well, you mentioned the healthcares and the frontline workers and the officers and things of that nature. This morning, I heard a very disturbing story of a doctor from New York City who literally was working, got the coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus, recovered from the COVID-19 virus, went back to work, and I guess became so overwhelmed and depressed that she took her own life. And they're finding out that more healthcare workers under the stress and the trauma are now becoming suicidal, becoming to suffering from mental illness, and I think that is one of the things that we have to pay attention to right now, because those that are already mentally ill is being exasperated, but those people that are being traumatized, I've talked to morticians in New York City, and they're saying that they're now licensing other state morticians to come into New York City because they can no longer handle the body count of
And not that
burials.
they are at emotional breaking points.
Yeah.
Because of the number of bodies they have and what they have to do in terms of the whole process, and that they're overwhelmed. They're truly overwhelmed.
And the hardship is that while this is still going on, the funeral prices have not changed.
No.
And so you're looking at when you were looking in New York, and they were like saying 1,500 people passed away today. They all, at some point, most of them were going straight into cremation, because pretty much that was all that could be done at this point, because the sites weren't being dug up as much, and grave sites were being prepared because of the stay-at-home order and things of that nature. So a lot of these family members were being cremated. In some states, it's like that's all you can do.
Well, and in some instances, there were mass burials that were being done because someone was commenting on that. And that's pretty much like what they did at the Potter's Field when they numbered the coffins in terms of laying them out and keeping a record of what burial was. And this is not unlike other situations that have hit other parts of the world. We're just getting it here for the first time in terms of the magnitude. But you're right. This is very serious. We don't see, when you're talking about flattening the curve, even as Governor Cuomo said today, each day this week in a 24-hour cycle, there's been over 300 deaths a day. And here in California, in San Diego, I mean, our numbers are up in terms of deaths. In the state, the numbers are up in terms of the number of people dying each day. LA has been hit extremely hard, and it already was in trouble just before the virus, just in terms of the medical examiner having a backlog from the number of people, the number of deaths from an actuarial standpoint, accidents, and all of these things happening. So this is still a very, very critical time. And it's a time to think beyond ourselves. Let us not forget the nursing homes. My heart is out to every family that have someone in a nursing home. You can't get inside to visit. They've always been ill-equipped, ill-staffed, ill-prepared to handle the volume that they had. They've always been used like a training ground for nursing staff coming here from other places before they try to move on, say, to the larger hospitals after they get some experience. But the nursing school mill, like in the Philippines, turning out hundreds at a time, will come here and work cheap compared to nurses here and what they get. So we don't have a national health care system. And some people here, I know for a fact have talked about such a system for the past 60 years.
Yeah.
And this is part of it, and this is not a one-time shot. We're expecting another wave in the fall. We're looking at some drug relief, but it's still going to take some coordinated planning and effort. And unfortunately, I don't believe we're going to get it until we get another occupant in the White House.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think that what I'm encouraging people to do, and please let you know that you can call in and jump in on this conversation about the pandemic and things that are being done. The number here is 858-251-6111. One of the things, Dr. Warren, that I've been researching and talking to is a lot of research is being done on how to combat and to come up with a cure for this virus. And a lot of information is not being shared with the American public. The one thing that was shared that was so ludicrous is that maybe if we inject disinfectant into our system, that it could kill off the virus. I don't care what anybody said. He said that he was just joking. This is no joking matter,
No.
and it was taken serious enough that even the disinfectant companies had to put out statements to say that this is not for consumption or injection, because they immediately saw poisoning deaths or poisoning cases go up.
40% increase in the number of calls from poison control phones around the country.
Yeah, and the reality is that because we're disinfecting so much, even here in the studio, we had to kind of control the use of Lysol because we would inhale and that's all we would smell. And so we actually bought a UV disinfectant light
Yes.
to literally disinfect the studio, to do it in a way that still leaves an odor, but you have to air it out and things of that nature. But we really truly in this time have to have some real serious conversations, and there's no joking matter when it comes down to this. I am appalled by our vice president and our president that literally refuses to wear a mask. And I don't know if they think that their face is so beautiful that everybody needs to see it. I don't know if they want to say they're the exception of, or if they already have the cure and they're taking it so they're not getting
Well,
it.
keep in mind we have months of human trials
Well,
to
I
go
don't think
through
they
before
have the
we know
cure,
if this
and I don't
truly
think
is
they
a cure.
understand
However, Dr.
the
Glenn and his
value of
team
leading by
are very
example.
optimistic.
From the very
We
beginning,
are
when they
happy to
started
announce that
doing the
we have
daily
completed the
briefings,
engineering and we have some
they weren't doing any social distancing. They were standing right on top of each other. They were all using the same podium, going up, putting their hands on it. Nobody had gloves, sanitizer, anything. And I think the ultimate insult for the vice president to go to the Mayo Clinic, or even the governor, and everybody in the clinic is wearing a mask, and he's going to be so cocky that he's not going to wear one because he's the vice president of the United States, and so he doesn't have to. If the prime minister of Great Britain can get COVID-19, well, this character certainly can too.
Yeah.
But it seems like the, the the evil appear to prosper, and the good people are suffering, and uh, we should have a national campaign to get the testing up to the 5 million a day that needs to be done. We should have a national campaign in terms of getting the supplies to our workers. There's no reason Congress should even have considered a bill that didn't make those frontline people first and foremost, who are the ones saving lives. There is no reason why, and I'm beginning to blame some of the very people in America who are suffering, because the 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 Trumpeteers really are being told by entities like Fox that in some of the speeches, this is not real, it's a hoax, and try sharing that with the 60,000 people that have died and whether or not they're really dead.
Well, one of the statements that this came in from one of our listeners, he said, "My sister and her two daughters go to work every day knowing that 7 of their colleagues tested positive and 39 of their patients have tested positive. It seems like one patient dies every day. They are scared." And so imagine that, we that are not healthcare workers, that might not be on the front line, imagine that every day at your work, someone's getting infected and someone is dying. And yet we're not having that mental health, that mental wellness conversation on how are we going to literally help heal these workers. They talk about PTSD. Well, I really believe that these medical workers, especially in the New York and the heavy hit areas, are going to suffer from PTSD, and we're going to have to be prepared to work with them, or we're going to have a shortage of medical professionals.
Well, they're already suffering from it, and I was so encouraged when Governor Cuomo indicated that when New York put out a call for volunteers in terms of healthcare workers, 95,000 people from across America were willing to leave their homes and the safety of their families to come work in New York. I don't hear of any other state asking for its volunteers. They haven't reached out to ask for help. And we've got governors who are a mere reflection of this Trump character who refuse to take this seriously while people are dying. I can only blame the people of those states for their own deaths under the circumstances because they should rise up, they should do a recall, they should take action to relieve themselves of this kind of leadership. Yes, we failed to get this guy impeached. And yes, the vice president, in implementing Article 25, the 25th Amendment could do something in terms of incompetency, but they're not going to. And for the president's son to get on the media today and talk about how successful things are, I believe that they are all living in Kellyanne Conway's alternate universe because there's no way they can be living in the same universe we are other than demonstrating that they have a complete disregard for human life, for any interest other than their own. And this is a painful lesson, but I think that it is an important lesson for the rest of America to see and experience. Some of these farmers who are plowing stuff under are the very people who voted for Trump and thought they were going to make America white again. Because it's not about great again, it's about making it white again. And it's an instance where racism manifests itself as being stronger than democracy, and now the whole nation is paying for the stupidity.
Well, let's talk about from a media standpoint. There has been this constant battle at the press conferences every day where he literally attacks media for any question that they are asking. The question comes at hand is when is enough enough and the media stop coming or stop reporting on him? Because I think that right now the assault on people's integrity and character is gone beyond the professional mark.
Well, I believe that's the game plan. If he could possibly insult the media to the extent that they stop covering him, he would be happy. I think that the media should be there no matter what he says, no matter how he dogs, that they should still be there. They should still ask the questions, and they should still let America see who it really put in the White House. And I think that's important. And we don't have any obligation to censor our questions. I know he hasn't read the Constitution and he doesn't understand the First Amendment, freedom of speech, but we understand it. And I think tough questions need to continue to be asked.
So let's go to the next thing, and that is the whole conversation of the border detainees. And now they're seeing that COVID is now starting to go through there. What should America do, or what should be demanded for the detainees? And also, at the same point, what are the prison systems doing to help the prisoners that are there in close quarters?
Well, I don't think outside of the federal prison system isn't doing anything really. And we've been covering a lot of this in the Voice and Viewpoint. And we see from prisons across the country that many of the guards are not following recommended protocol, gloves, masks, or handling of food items or anything like that. And then the downside of that is that many of these same people seeking to infect the prisoners are getting infected themselves, and then they're taking it home to their families. So we have a petri dish there with the prisoners. I know it's in a couple of prisons. The prisoners took some safeguards where new people who were coming into the prison were isolated by the prisoners in terms of where they ate, which phone they used. They were kept separate from others for 14 or 21 days, even within the system. Some prisoners have gone so far as to use their gloves for their socks for gloves, and their T-shirts and clothing to make masks to try and protect themselves. But that's very difficult when people are in such close quarters in terms of space. That's why we closed down the schools and emptied the dormitories. And so, again, this is an area where the numbers are going to go up. And who benefits? I mean, at one point, we were trying to fill the prisons with as many people as we could. That's why they put them on the stock exchange and went public. Uh, the Correctional Corporation of America and all of those things. Now that is no longer that cost beneficial. The next move is to try to reduce the population, as we're seeing, with the deaths that are going to come. And I believe that while we're at 60,000 in May, I project that we will probably, in terms of deaths by the November election, be in close to 300,000, between 250 and 300,000 dead, and probably about 10 million people infected in the United States alone.
And so, with these numbers coming in, what is the message across the board with the African American publishers, and have they all decided to be on the same page with the message?
Well, the African American publishers are in a very difficult position because our papers never did have the business that mainstream daily media had. We always said that African American newspapers were like the bumblebee, who aerodynamically, according to scientists, is not supposed to fly, but nobody ever told them. And so we've survived without the car dealerships and department stores and grocery stores and all of those kind of things. In a number of cities, some of our papers have shut down. Some have reduced their numbers. Many have gone to working remotely where they can. We're trying to help those who are not up to that kind of speed get there in terms of digitally producing their papers, and so we're getting help. We have a coronavirus task force within the National Newspaper Publishers Association. We have ongoing meetings with the Congressional Black Caucus, with members of our state legislative African American bodies, the legislature in itself. I've tried to be helpful with a number of our papers so that they could understand from a public policy standpoint how to do business with the local entities that are handling this crisis in the communities in which they live. And so it's a learning curve and it's an adjustment for many. We've been very fortunate in terms of the kind of support and outreach that the Voice and Viewpoint has been able to do. And so we're focusing on trying to help others where we can.
You know, I want to talk about the leadership of the California governor, Mr. Gavin Newsom. I want to commend him. Today he got on the news and he said, we are going to stay the course. We're not going to be bullied or intimidated by anybody to move faster than we need to do. He said, you can protest, you can stomp your feet, but we ain't going to move until it's right. And that is what I consider to be leadership. You know, I want to say this. I love the beach. I love watching the crashing waves. Sunset Cliff, La Jolla Shores, man, a beautiful sight. But guess what? I can still see it from my car. I do not need to go up and get all up with 15, 16 folks within 2 feet of you, sneezing and coughing and talking loud to say I was there. I'm really trying to get the understanding, maybe because I'm a little bit older now, you know, and I might be in that little red zone area. I just don't understand it. You know, if you want to go out and surf, go out and surf.
Well, you know, Dr. Thompson, I'm laughing because as you're talking about the water, I believe it's Herman Melville in the opening passages of Moby Dick, the novel. He talks about the affinity that people have for the water, and how Sundays they'll find a lake or a pond if they're not close to a river or the ocean, that they're drawn to be near the water. And so we see that in this culture that people are drawn. But at the same time, a lot of us who live right here with the beautiful beaches, a lot of folks here, at least people of color and working people, they don't get to the beach unless they get out of town visitors.
Or a holiday.
A holiday, and they don't, we don't get there. I mean, I used to enjoy many years ago. My late wife and I would often go over to Coronado to catch, the sunsets in the evening because it wouldn't be crowded like Mission Beach or other places. But this is a time for us to. I look at people; they can't wait to get out there. They're out there by the hundreds and in the waves and walking. And even walking wouldn't be so bad, but so many of them, they don't have face masks, they don't have gloves, they walk in close together. I passed two people this morning on the other side of the street. Maybe they live together. Two girls walking and no gloves, no masks, and everything just like it's just another beautiful day.
In the neighborhood, huh?
Yeah, in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
And so we just got that kind of mentality that this doesn't apply to us.
And I think, and for me, it's almost like an American arrogance that we have the answer and it ain't going to apply to us. Our leadership said it's not going to apply to us, but we have the most infected people in the world. So there has to be at some point, knock, knock, open your mouth, open your eyes, see that people are dying from this, and we got more people than anybody else in the world that has it. And one of our listeners said they didn't even want to open up the cities until they found out a whole bunch of black people started dying, and they're like, "Oh, what?" And I'm really, really, really upset with the governor of Georgia because they're so quickly opening it up. But then the mayor of Atlanta is saying she doesn't agree with it.
No,
She doesn't want the city to open up right now because of it's a safe. She knows that she is in a city where there are a tremendous amount of people of color.
Well, the good news is, and the mayor is a sharp sister, and she doesn't have to get into a tit for tat with the governor because the governor can open it up, but she can't make people shop. She can't make people come out. And black people in Atlanta have a strong history of pulling and working together, even when the rest of us weren't doing so in other parts of the country. So I don't think that we're going to rush out there. I think we're going to be more cautious. To your earlier comment, I really salute the governor of the state, his sensitivity. He was the one who put $50 million there for undocumented workers because he understood the importance of them in terms of the food supply. And he was the one that went out and got the hotel rooms to prepare to have a place to isolate the homeless as they're identified. We got close to 60,000 homeless people in L.A. Alone, and there are all kinds of issues that come with those numbers. And so there are some people who are going to do the right thing. I believe the governors will pull together. I believe a number of them will follow the examples of Cuomo and Newsom here. Tim in Maryland. In Virginia, Larry Hogan in Maryland, the governors of Connecticut. All of these people, as they look at a regional approach, makes sense. I think one of the things we need to do, and they keep trying to say it in the White House, we need to get the president off television every day. He is only on there because Cuomo is on, and Cuomo's got good numbers, and he's on there because he just wants to have something to say. I mean, for this man to get mad with his own campaign manager just because his polling numbers are bad, they're not as bad as they should be. I mean, for him to only have a 55% disapproval with all the people dead, it ought to be 95%. So, I mean, like, how many more people got to die before they wake up and realize that, the chosen one is not leading them any place?
Well, one of the things I said, a lot of times we give the president of the United States too much power. We know that he's not God, and that there are certain things that he can talk about, but really he can't affect everything, but he can affect a lot of things. I think that at this point, as we move forth, and this is an election year, although we haven't been really talking about the election, this is an election year, and we can't lose focus that we still have races going on in cities and states and in the United States, and we have to make sure that we get people in office that are going to literally help us through the next wave in the right way. Now, it's not going to be a thing that we're just going to be able to throw money after money after money, but what we can do is make sure that we have forward-thinking people in those positions that will make decisions that are going to impact the collective and not just me, myself, and I.
Well, I want to say a couple of things about that, Dr. Thompson, but let me say again to our listeners that if you have a comment or question, you may reach us at 858 251 6111, or you may go to your internet and reach us at GODradio1, that's numero1.com. And we'll be happy to pass your question or comments on to our listeners as we go forward with this. It's not a long time that we have in terms of information, but sometimes when people are pent up, you need to be heard. And as much as we're talking, we still want to take time to hear you or to share your comments that you might have. We don't have to use your name, and we won't unless you really asked us to. But this is an important time. So, Dr. Thompson, again, get back to the point you were making. We're talking about the elections. We know that this president is doing a couple of things that we need to keep our eyes on. First of all, the U.S. Postal Service is going to run out of money by September. The Postal Service is a quasi-governmental corporation, just as Amtrak. The Postal Service has to be maintained because it's constitutionally mandated. There's a requirement in the Constitution for a postal service. And so it seems to be some people saying, well, we might have to keep one, but we're going to keep a skeleton one. We're not going to keep it as it should be. Now, when we went through the Amtrak scare, somebody within the Postal Service, one of the employees who should have gone to jail, sold us out. The commercial airliners would no longer fly our mail. And so these people turned to FedExpress, DHL, and one of the things that Federal Express got as a concession was the placing of a FedEx box at every post office so that it could compete with the Postal Service. Mm-hmm. Now, we know that until FedEx came along, it forced DHL and UPS to upgrade the tracking systems, and those were the positive benefits from competition. But we're moving in the direction of talking about allowing more people to vote by mail so that we don't have a repeat of what happened in Wisconsin, where people were forced to stand in line close together for hours to vote. And since then, following the election, we've had a surge in coronavirus cases coming out of that experience. And if you go back and look at the footage, most of those people standing in line were African American.
Yeah.
They were black people who were determined to vote no matter what the cost or how long it took. And so this president would like to see, if I can't stop the election, if I let the Postal Service run out of money, then it's not going to be able to deliver the ballots absentee in the manner that it should be. And this is all because he knows that he's going to lose at this point. We just got to stay the course in terms of not only supporting Biden, because Biden is just the man that represents the spearhead to getting us back to a structured government that will save this nation. If we get 4 more years of Donald Trump, nobody will have to fire a shot to signal the destruction of America. We would have self-destructed by putting a fool in office at the helm.
Well, and the thing that I think that we have to do is ask the question, and it's simply this: are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And also want to make a statement that Vegas is also planning to open. And what I was looking for is, one of my friends said that being at the coronavirus and being quarantined was like being in Vegas. He said it was like, I've lost track of time. I'm losing money, because he's not working. And he said, and the chips keep coming or something like that. But Vegas is now talking about opening back up. And I thought the Venetian, it sounded really silly to me. Venetian said that they were going to wash the chips, they sanitize the chips every 2 hours.
Yeah. Well,
They were going to have areas where high traffic areas where disinfectant was going to be being constantly sprayed.
they would tell people anything. But there was a special on Vegas on the media just a few days ago, and it is a ghost town. It's unbelievable to see Caesar's Palace and all of these places totally empty, not a soul any place walking, the strip's deserted. You can open it up again, but that doesn't mean that people are going to flock there. First of all, most of the people who come there come by plane, and we see from listening to the airline industry that I think JetBlue is the only airline that's even moved to have people wear face masks as a requirement. There's no discussion about the middle seat or how to spread the people out on planes. And people are not going to go get on planes just to go to die in Vegas. I don't see that happening. Now, some people might drive. Those of us here in the West can drive there. But I don't see people rushing there any more than I see the local casinos here opening up. They are shuttered. Sequan, Viejas, I mean, they're locked down. There are jobs at stake. I think they've done well enough that they can weather some of this. I mean, a lot of us don't know in San Diego that Sequan owns the U.S. Grant. That's shuttered as well. I think they have some interest in shipping and other things. They just built a beautiful hotel out there with nice sandy beaches like you're in the islands. But people are not going to have the money to do this kind of social stuff because since we don't have a cure, we don't have the testing that we need, we don't have all of the health care, those who get money like the stimulus, wise folks are going to hold on to a part of that money. They're not just going to run out and spend it because they got 50 cents. Wise people. Then there are some fools running out there buying all kinds of stuff like it's Christmas. And
I especially like the car deals right now.
Yeah, and there ain't going to be another stimulus like that, though, for them. Car dealers are giving you 6 months without a payment.
6 months without a payment.
Yeah, and no interest after that because the cars are sitting there. And if you hold on people who get money, there going to be bargains you never dreamed of in the next 6 months in America.
Oh, most definitely. You're going to see more people with Maseratis because they're going to be going off the lot. Discounted price. Car
sales are down and bicycle sales are up.
You know what I'm saying? And skateboards.
Yes.
But I think that what's really important for people to begin to look at is how do we shift our resources at this time? A lot of people are going through, but how do you literally shift your resources at this time to weather the storm and then be in a better place after the storm is over? Now, I know some people say, well, I'm not working right now and things of that nature, but I have been watching folks be so creative at this time. I actually have a staffer that can't even come to staff meetings because her orders are so extreme on personalized masks that she can't even keep up with her orders. So her business that was, just growing small now is an overflow. So what is the creative things that you all can begin to think about that will make a change? I saw a little boy come up with an idea of, how you put the mask on to be hurting your ears?
Yeah.
So he came up with a little piece that you could put the mask on so it won't pull at your ears. And, it was out there, but he created his own. And we're seeing more and more creativity, and we're also seeing people being very, very creative. I'm going to talk about, some people have been getting on my nerves, though. And I want to tell you, there's this one gentleman who's doing, I don't know if it's 50 or 100 push-ups a day, and he's doing it online. And he's making me say, look, do not stop teasing me with the push-ups But I am literally seeing people create whole fitness plans for people to follow on fitness
Yes.
challenge. One of my friends from San Diego State, she does a whole morning stretch, and she has people connected with her. Now, when she comes out of that and her dance studio and her facilities reopen up, people are going to still flock to her because they're building relationships right now. I'm even thinking of the playwrights and the writers. I know good and well they got some good writing going on right now because there's just too much funny stuff that you're seeing while we're in this quarantine.
Well, I like to remind people, and I've said this in the weeks past here, that you look at the glass and we have to decide, is it half empty or half full?
Mm-hmm.
And I've shared before that in every societal upheaval and change, there are money opportunities if we stop whining and complaining long enough and just study what is it that people need, what service can I provide, what can I do? I mean, that's how people started the whole personal service of picking up laundry for folks. That's how the whole idea of somebody shopping for you, going to the store. And what we're going to see happen here is that a lot of the brick and mortar buildings, businesses, they're going to go vacant because people are going to find out that, well, our business suggested we didn't need that fancy office and we got people working. So let's just move on.
And that's the craziest thing. One of my friend's wife used to have to get up and get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, drive an hour to get to her job. Now she is working from home, and they're finding out that she is way more productive, and she's saving so much time that even after the corona is over, they're saying that they're going to allow her to stay there.
And people are going to do that. I have a church member who works with a company back east, and she's working from home, and she shared with me that her workday really starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because at 1 o'clock it's 4 o'clock on the East Coast, and the people who are working on East Coast time, they're coming off, and she's able to get online.
Yeah.
And so she can work like from 1 until 8 in the evening, and she's getting her time in, but it's working for her in terms of what she does.
Well, Dr. Warren, I wanted you to know that I'm starting a new service. It's called "What Is Your Baby's Name Going to Be?" Because I'm trying to steer people away from Corovina and COVID and all these things. So I'm going to start a naming service because I believe at the same time we're going to have an influx or a flood of babies 9 months from now.
Boom, yes.
And so we got to get some names out there because some people I spell COVID-19 differently. That's so he COVID-9.
Yeah, and we don't want everybody named Kobe, and we don't need more Leroys and Tyrones and Jethros and Sakitas and Sequitas.
Yes.
Yeah, we need. This is an opportunity to give some thought.
Yeah. So if you have come with child and you want a great name with meaning, hit a brother up with my new service, Name Your Child the Right Way. But no, serious talk. That is literally how simple things are in creativity. God said he'll take the simple things to confound the wise.
Yes, he will.
So you don't have to have $50 million to be creative. You could literally come up with one joke that goes viral.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, people are like, oh, we want that person on our show.
Well, a perfect example of that, Dr. Thompson, is what happened with the prayer of Jaybez. Jabez prayer is right there in the Bible, and it's been there forever. Somebody took the prayer and printed it up in a little book and talked about how Jaybez got his prayer answered. And what did Jabez pray? It said Jaybez prayed and asked God to expand his coast. Yeah. And he did, and they made a ton of money off of selling what was already printed.
This little book.
No, it's there.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. Now, this is a good one. Mr. Workout himself said, how do we feel the church will be affected after COVID-19?
Well, that's a good question, because if anything, people in the church should realize that we're closer to the return of Jesus than ever before. And, some churches are going to survive when they realize it wasn't a building. Some are going to be suffering because they put the emphasis on the building. I don't see new building structures going up. I'm experiencing an increase in terms of online participation in worship and Bible study, and encouraging people to put God back in the plan. That's the key to mental health, mental wellness. Get into Philippians 4, and you can find the peace that you're looking for. And so I think that those who are in the Word, teaching the Word, and following the Word are going to be okay. Those who just out there trying to grab a scripture and tell a story and get somebody to shout and fall over a bench, they'll probably close.
Well, one of the things that I'm finding out is that I've been working and consulting with a lot of churches. A lot of pastors are saying that their membership is increasing almost triple.
Yes.
With their online ministry, and they're literally seeing it in the giving also.
Yes.
And so I really believe that after COVID-19, the church numbers are going to increase. Not as many increase in the physically coming to church, but the social media and the aspect of them being able to tune into your ministry at home and literally study and get the word. You're going to get that connectedness with people. I say that your spiritual father,
Dr. Hilliard?
Yeah, Dr. Hilliard, in my household, we have Dr. Hilliard, Dr. Price, T.D. Jakes, and I could just go on. Every day of the week, there's some ministry that's going forward. And my wife is that type of person. If you're feeding me, I give to yours too, as well as I make sure I do the things that I do for my home church.
Right.
And so there are some pastors that have gone online that are literally feeding the flock
they're
now.
Feeding the nation and the people that you mentioned. Reverend Price is Dr. Hilliard's spiritual father. And I guess I claim Reverend Price, Dr. Hilliard, T.D. Jakes, all of these men have been very instrumental in my life in the past 20 years of ministry. They've been tremendous help and inspiration. And there's wisdom in terms of what they do. And so I believe that the church is going to grow online, but I also believe that there will be some physical growth. But if the word is there, the people will follow.
And that's what I want to say, the word, because there are some people right now that are launching the online church, and it's not the word. And I need for you guys to make sure you study the word, so when you hear it, you understand it and you can get with it, because there's some people out there that are just scamming. I'm going to close with this. One of the saddest things that I saw this week was Bishop J. Drew Shears getting on Instagram and social media and saying, after he lost his mother to corona and his father is recovering, and he had to say, please understand that I am not soliciting money for my family. If you look at that, there is an extra J in the name. And he basically said, please do not give any money to this cause. And please know that I would never do that. It's a sad thing that when you're in the time of a season of trying to bury your loved one, that you have to literally go on and stop people from scamming using your name. So we have to be careful what's going on online too.
That's what the enemy does. We're going to stay connected. We want people to, this week, tune in to GOD Radio 1 and get some good gospel while you're home. Okay, follow it and tune into ministry and get some word. Pray this week and do something for someone other than yourself. And we will keep you in our prayers and look forward to being with you next time.
Also, to let you know that there's been some great interviews that have been taking place throughout the week. Yesterday, they had the famous rapper Dougie Fresh.
All right.
And on that, it was so funny. He just sent, before the release, a cut with him and Marvin Sapp that was debuted today on GOD Radio 1. Stay tuned for Anita Wilson and Will Downing this week. Right here on GOD Radio 1. Y'all be blessed.
Be blessed.